First contact with the impossible. The Galactic Federation research vessel, Eternal Serenity, drifted through the edges of the Orion Arm, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant starlight. Chief Scientist Zixtel stood at the main observation deck, his translucent tentacles rippling with anxiety as he studied the unusual readings on his holographic display. "High Overseer," he called out, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with urgency. "We're detecting anomalous energy signatures from the nearby asteroid field. The readings, they don't make sense." High Overseer Valora glided across the deck, her silvery scales shimmering under the ship's ambient lighting. "Explain, Chief Scientist." "The signatures suggest active mining operations, but the conditions in that field are lethal. The radiation levels alone would kill any known species within minutes, not to mention the extreme temperature variations and toxic gas clouds." Valera's compound eyes narrowed as she studied the data. The asteroid field before them churned with deadly radiation storms, while superheated gases swirled between the massive rocks. According to all known scientific principles, no living being could survive there, let alone conduct mining operations. "Perhaps it's automated equipment," she suggested. "No, High Overseer. We're detecting organic life signs, hundreds of them." Before Valera could respond, the ship's communication officer, a crystalline being named Crix, chimed in with an urgent tone. "High Overseer, we're receiving a transmission from the asteroid field. It's in simple radio waves." "Put it through," Valera ordered, her scales shifting to a deeper silver, a sign of intense curiosity among her species. The ship's holographic display flickered to life, and the entire bridge crew froze in astonishment. The being on the screen was unlike anything they had encountered in their centuries of space exploration. It stood upright on two legs, covered in what appeared to be some kind of protective suit, but its face was exposed through a clear visor. The creature's features were eerily symmetrical, with a flat face, forward-facing eyes, and most disturbingly, exposed teeth that seemed to be permanently visible. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Mining Corporation vessel Prometheus. We noticed your ship at the edge of our operation zone. Is everything all right? Do you need assistance?" Valera took a moment to process the fact that this being was casually speaking to them from an environment that should have killed it instantly. I am High Overseer Valera of the Galactic Federation research vessel Eternal Serenity. We were investigating the unusual energy signatures in this region. How are you surviving in those conditions?" The creature, Captain Chen, tilted her head slightly. "Oh, these conditions. Pretty standard for deep space mining, actually. We've got about 200 workers out here extracting rare elements from these asteroids. Did you want to discuss mineral rights? We're properly licensed through the Earth government, but we haven't encountered your federation before." Zixtel's tentacles were practically tying themselves in knots as he analyzed the incoming data. "High Overseer, their vital signs are extraordinary. Their bodies contain high concentrations of heavy metals, they're breathing corrosive oxygen, and their internal temperature would cook most species alive." Captain Chen's expression changed, her lips curving upward in what their xenobiological database identified as a smile, though the display of teeth made several crew members instinctively back away from the screen. "Would you like to come aboard for a tour? We could establish proper first contact protocols. Our facility has universal atmospheric generators that can accommodate most known species." Valera exchanged looks with her senior staff. This was unprecedented. These beings were not only surviving but thriving in conditions that the Federation classified as absolutely lethal. The scientific opportunity was too valuable to pass up, even if these creatures seemed terrifying. "We would be honored, Captain Chen. However, we need to verify that our environmental suits can withstand your facility's conditions. Of course, I'll have our engineering team send over our environmental specifications. Fair warning, we keep our gravity at Earth standard, which might be a bit heavy for you folks. We can adjust it in the meeting areas if needed." When the specifications came through, Zixtel's bioluminescence nearly went dark with shock. High Overseer, they maintain their facility at nearly twice standard galactic gravity. The pressure levels alone. We'll adjust all parameters to your comfort levels, Captain Chen assured them, apparently hearing Zixtal's concern. We're used to accommodating various species' needs. Some of our trading partners find our normal working conditions a bit intense. As the Eternal Serenity crew prepared for first contact, they couldn't help but feel they were about to step into legend. These humans, as they called themselves, were casually reshaping everything the Federation thought they knew about the limits of life in the universe. The docking procedure itself was a testament to human engineering. The Prometheus extended a specialized airlock that automatically adjusted its internal conditions to match the Eternal Serenity's life support settings. As Valera led her delegation through the connection tunnel, she noticed the subtle but impressive technology that kept their environments perfectly separated. Captain Chen met them in a specially prepared conference room, now without her protective suit. Up close, the human was even more fascinating. She moved with surprising grace despite her dense musculature, and her skin seemed to regularly release water through tiny pores, a cooling mechanism that both disgusted and intrigued the Federation scientists. "Welcome aboard the Prometheus," Chen said, still displaying that disconcerting smile. "I hope the gravity reduction isn't too disorienting for you. We had to keep it at about 1.2 standard for structural integrity reasons." Zixtal, who had insisted on coming despite his anxiety, was already taking readings with his portable scanner. "Fascinating. Your species' bone density is remarkable. And your cardiovascular system. Is that iron-based blood?" Chen laughed, a sound that made several Federation delegates vibrate nervously. "Yes, we're iron-based. Pretty common for Earth life forms. Listen, before we get too deep into the scientific exchange, would anyone like some water? Or perhaps coffee?" "Coffee?" Valera inquired. "It's a stimulant beverage we drink to help us stay alert during long shifts. Perfectly safe for humans." Zixtal quickly scanned the offered drink and nearly dropped his equipment. This contains multiple psychoactive compounds, and you consume it voluntarily. Several times a day, usually," Chen confirmed, taking a long sip from her cup. "It helps us focus. Though I should warn you, it's probably toxic to non-humans. We've learned to be careful about sharing our food and drinks. What's mundane for us tends to be deadly for others." As the meeting progressed, the Federation delegation found themselves repeatedly shocked by casual revelations about human capabilities. These beings regularly worked in vacuum conditions with minimal protection. They could survive extreme temperature variations that would shatter most species' molecular bonds. They even deliberately ingested small amounts of toxic substances to build immunity. "Your species," Valera finally said, her scales shimmering with a mix of fear and admiration. "You evolved on what we would classify as a death world, didn't you?" Chen nodded. "Earth? Oh yes, high gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive wildlife, natural disasters, variable atmospheric conditions. The whole package. It's actually why we're so good at space mining. Most of these conditions are pretty similar to what we dealt with back home." As the Eternal Serenity departed several hours later, Valera knew that the universe had changed forever. Humanity wasn't just another spacefaring species. They were Deathworld survivors who treated lethal environments as mere inconveniences. The Federation would need to rapidly revise its understanding of what was possible in the universe. And somewhere in the deadly asteroid field, hundreds of humans continued their work, casually defying what the galaxy had always considered impossible. The challenge of understanding. The Federation Science Academy's main conference chamber had never been so crowded. Beings from across the galaxy packed the crystalline amphitheater, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of bioluminescence, shifting colors, and varied morphologies. At the center stage, Chief Scientist Zixtal's tentacles quivered with excitement as he prepared to present his findings on humanity. "Distinguished colleagues," he began, his translator converting his harmonic speech into standard galactic common. 3 solar cycles ago, we encountered a species that defies everything we thought we knew about biological limitations. The holographic display behind him activated, showing footage from the Prometheus mining operation. Gasps rippled through the audience as they watched humans working in conditions that should have been instantly fatal. As you can see, humans not only survive but thrive in environments we classified as absolutely lethal. However, their physical resilience is merely the beginning of their remarkable attributes. The display shifted to show detailed biological scans. Humans are what we now call composite extremophiles. Their cellular structure combines durability mechanisms we previously thought were mutually exclusive. They can endure radiation levels that would kill most species, while simultaneously maintaining internal temperatures that would cook most proteins. A crystalline being from the Medical Sciences Division raised a glowing appendage. But how do they prevent cellular breakdown under such conditions? That's where it gets even more fascinating, Zixtol replied. Humans possess an aggressive cellular repair system. They actively damage and repair themselves to become stronger. They call this process exercise and engage in it voluntarily. The chamber erupted in shocked discussions. The idea of deliberately stressing one's body to improve it seemed like madness to most species. Furthermore, Zixtol continued, once the commotion settled, humans exhibit what we're calling adaptive resilience. Watch this footage from their training facilities. The display showed humans lifting weights in their standard gravity. Many audience members recoiled at the sight of beings voluntarily subjecting themselves to crushing forces. This is not merely about physical capability, Zixtol explained. Humans possess a psychological trait they call determination. When faced with what they consider a challenge, they often become more focused and effective, rather than retreating from danger. The presentation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Elena Martinez, the human representative assigned to the Federation Science Academy. She walked casually into the chamber, her movements fluid despite the reduced gravity that made most species float uncomfortably. "I hope I'm not late," she said, smiling at the assembly. "I was just finishing my morning run." "Dr. Martinez has agreed to assist with a live demonstration," Zixtol announced. "Doctor, would you please show them your healing ability?" Elena rolled up her sleeve, revealing a fresh cut on her arm. "This is from yesterday," she explained to the astounded audience. "Watch closely." The chamber's advanced imaging systems projected a microscopic view of her wound. The assembled scientists watched in amazement as her cells actively worked to repair the damage, knitting flesh back together at a rate that seemed impossible. "We don't even need medical intervention for minor injuries like this," Elena explained. "Our bodies handle it automatically, though we did develop medicine to speed up the process for more serious injuries." "And the scarring?" asked a gaseous being floating near the front. "Oh, scars are just our body's way of making the repaired area stronger," Elena replied casually. "Some humans even view them as marks of pride, proof they survived something challenging." The concept of celebrating evidence of damage sent another wave of murmurs through the audience. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of human biology, Zixtol continued, is their adaptability to toxic substances. "Dr. Martinez, would you mind demonstrating your species' unusual relationship with what you call coffee?" Elena laughed, pulling out a thermos. "I brought enough to analyze, though I don't recommend anyone here trying it. Last time we shared coffee with the crystalline delegation, they vibrated at their resonant frequency for 3 full cycles." The audience watched in horror as she drank the dark liquid, their sensors detecting the powerful stimulants and what should have been lethal compounds. "Humans," Zixtol explained, "have developed a cultural practice of deliberately exposing themselves to small amounts of toxic substances to either build immunity or achieve desired physiological effects. They call this practice building tolerance and apply it to various substances." "It's not just tolerance," Elena added. "We've learned to enjoy many things that started as survival adaptations. Take spicy food, for instance. Those are plants that evolved chemicals to prevent being eaten, and we turned them into cuisine." The presentation continued with more revelations about human capabilities. Their ability to continue functioning despite sleep deprivation, their remarkable temperature tolerance range, their capacity to heal from broken bones. Each new piece of information seemed more incredible than the last. But perhaps most significantly, Zixtal concluded, humans possess an attribute that transcends their physical capabilities. They have an insatiable drive to explore and understand the universe, even when that curiosity leads them into what we would consider suicidal situations. Elena nodded in agreement. We have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we encounter something impossible, we don't accept it as a limit. We see it as a challenge to overcome. The implications of this statement sent ripples of both excitement and concern through the assembly. A species that viewed lethal conditions as challenges rather than barriers could revolutionize space exploration or prove dangerously reckless. After the presentation, Elena found herself surrounded by curious scientists, each eager to understand more about human capabilities. She patiently answered their questions, though she couldn't hide her amusement at their reactions to what she considered ordinary human traits. No, we don't consider it particularly brave to explore uncharted worlds, she explained to a floating gas cloud being. Challenging, yes, but that's what makes it interesting. Humans tend to get bored with things that are too safe and predictable. But how do you overcome the natural survival instinct to avoid deadly conditions? Asked a silicon-based scientist. Elena thought for a moment. We don't really overcome it. We just channel it differently. Fear can make humans more cautious, but it can also make us more focused and determined. We call it the fight or flight response, though many humans have learned to use it as fight or fight harder. As the session concluded, Zixtal found himself recording one final observation in his research notes. The true challenge in understanding humans isn't documenting their extraordinary biological capabilities. It's comprehending how they turned what should be survival disadvantages into cultural strengths. They don't just survive dangerous conditions, they actively seek them out for entertainment, advancement, and discovery. The galaxy may never be the same now that we've encountered a species that views Deathworlds as ideal vacation spots. Crisis at Nova Station. Nova Station hung in space like a gleaming snowflake, its crystalline structures reflecting the light of 3 nearby suns. The station represented the pinnacle of Federation engineering, a joint research facility where species from across the galaxy could work together in carefully maintained, universally habitable conditions. Commander Lirith, a being composed of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, monitored the station's status from the central control room. The recent addition of a human research team had required significant modifications to certain sections of the station, but the benefits of their unique perspectives had proven worth the effort. Commander, one of the sensor operators, called out, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with concern. We're detecting unusual energy fluctuations in the station's core. Before Lirith could respond, the station shuddered violently. Warning signals flashed across multiple displays as the primary power core began to destabilize. Multiple systems failing, another operator reported, their crystalline form vibrating with stress. The containment field around the core is collapsing. Radiation levels are rising exponentially. Dr. Kate Chen, the human chief engineer, burst into the control room. Unlike the other species present, she showed no signs of distress from the station's increasingly unstable gravity fields. Commander, we need to shut down the core manually, she announced, already pulling up schematics on her tablet. The automated systems aren't responding. Lirith's energy form flickered with concern. Impossible. The core chamber is already flooded with lethal radiation. Even our most hardened maintenance drones can't function in those conditions. Kate's expression hardened with what the aliens had come to recognize as human determination. The radiation levels are high, but they're within what humans can handle for short periods. We've got radiation suits that can buy us enough time. Absolutely not, Lirith declared. The temperature in the core chamber has risen to levels that would cook most organic beings alive. The gravity fluctuations alone would crush your bones. "Commander," Kate said firmly, "with all due respect, humans have been dealing with radiation, extreme temperatures, and crushing pressures since we first split the atom. This is literally what we train for." Before Lirith could argue further, another violent tremor shook the station. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sending several crew members floating toward the ceiling. Kate grabbed a handrail, her dense muscles allowing her to anchor herself, while helping a floating crystalline being back to their station. "We have 17 minutes before total core failure," she reported, checking her tablet. "That's enough time for my team to reach the core and implement emergency shutdown procedures. But we need to move now." Lirith's energy form pulsed rapidly, their species equivalent of rapid, anxious breathing. The commander knew the humans had survived conditions that would kill most species, but sending them into the core chamber seemed like suicide. "What's your plan?" Lirith finally asked. Kate quickly outlined her strategy. "My team is already suiting up. We'll access the core through the maintenance tunnels, manually override the containment protocols, and initiate a cold shutdown. We've modified our mining suits for exactly this kind of situation." "The maintenance tunnels are barely wide enough for your species," one of the operators pointed out. "And with the gravity fluctuations, we'll crawl if we have to," Kate replied with that distinctive human expression they called a grim smile. "Besides, the tight space works in our favor. More surfaces to brace against." As if to emphasize the urgency, another alarm began blaring. The radiation containment field was now operating at less than 40% efficiency. "Commander," Kate said softly, "either we try this, or we evacuate the station and watch 3 years of research go up in a radiation fireball. And even if we evacuate, the resulting explosion could damage nearby shipping lanes. We have to try." Lirith's crystal matrix vibrated with the frequency of decision. "Do it. But I want constant communication, and you pull out the moment your suit's radiation indicators hit critical." Kate was already moving. "Understood. Jones, Pottle, Rodriguez, gear up. We're going in hot." The control room staff watched in amazement as the human team prepared for their mission. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking each other's modified mining suits and radiation gear. Most shocking to the aliens was the humans' calm demeanor. They joked with each other as they prepared to enter conditions that should have terrified any sane being. "Remember," Kate briefed her team, "the gravity's going to be wild in there. Treat it like that time we had to repair the mining rig during the solar storm on Venus. Patel, you're on power systems. Rodriguez, you handle the coolant lines. Jones, you're monitoring our radiation exposure and suit integrity." "What about you, Chief?" Rodriguez asked, sealing his helmet. "I'll be implementing the shutdown sequence. If anything goes wrong, the rest of you get out. No heroics." The alien crew noticed how the other humans smirked at this last order, sharing knowing looks that suggested no heroics was not a rule humans typically followed. The team moved through the station with surprising speed, their dense muscles and natural adaptability allowing them to cope with the shifting gravity fields. Through the camera feeds, the control room watched as they reached the maintenance access point. Beginning radiation scrubbing sequence, Jones reported as they prepared to enter the highly radioactive area. "Suits are holding steady. We're good to go." The maintenance tunnel was barely large enough for the suited humans to crawl through. The gravity fluctuations made every movement a challenge, alternating between crushing them against the tunnel walls and trying to float them into the ceiling. Yet they pressed on, using their environment suits' magnetic grapples to maintain control. "Core chamber ahead," Kate reported, her voice steady despite the strain evident in her movements. "Radiation levels are spicy." "Spicy is not a scientific term, Dr. Chen," Lirith reminded her, energy form flickering with worry. "Sorry, Commander. Radiation levels are at 2000 rem and climbing. Suits are still within tolerances, but we need to work fast." The team emerged into the core chamber, and even the humans fell silent for a moment. The usually orderly space was chaos incarnate. The containment field flickered like heat waves in a desert, while arcs of energy crackled between the core's structural supports. The gravity fluctuations were visible as ripples in the air. "Right," Kate said, her voice gaining that peculiar tone of human excitement that often terrified their alien colleagues. "Let's get to work, just like we practiced, people." What followed was a display of human capability that would be studied in Federation archives for years to come. The team worked with remarkable coordination, each member executing their tasks despite conditions that should have made complex work impossible. They braced against the shifting gravity, used their suits' systems to shield against the radiation, and somehow maintained their focus despite the rising temperature. "Core temperature dropping," Paddle reported after what seemed like an eternity. "Containment field is stabilizing. Radiation levels decreasing." Jones added, "We're not going to be growing any extra limbs today, folks." "Initiating final shutdown sequence," Kate announced. "Commander, you should be seeing the core readings returning to normal parameters." Lirith confirmed this, their energy form pulsing with relief. "Well done, human team. Please return to the control room immediately for medical evaluation." "Just need to secure a few more systems," Kate replied. "Don't want to risk a secondary cascade." The humans spent several more minutes in the lethal environment, methodically checking and securing systems that their alien colleagues would never have dreamed of approaching under such conditions. When they finally returned to the control room, their suits were scorched and dented, but their spirits were high. "All in a day's work," Kate reported, removing her helmet to reveal a sweat-soaked but grinning face. "Though I could really use some coffee right now." The control room staff stared at the humans in a mixture of awe and horror as they casually discussed their experience, while checking each other for radiation exposure. These beings had just survived conditions that would have killed most species instantly, saved a station worth billions in research and resources, and their primary concern seemed to be accessing their preferred stimulant beverage. "I don't understand," one of the crystalline operators finally said. "How can you treat such a deadly situation so casually?" Kate shrugged, a gesture the aliens had learned meant casual dismissal. "Humans have been dealing with radiation since we first started splitting atoms. Sure, it's dangerous, but so is crossing the street on Earth. You learn to respect the risks while getting the job done." Commander Lirith made a special note in the station's log. The humans' ability to normalize extreme conditions and remain functional in crisis situations makes them invaluable crew members, albeit terrifying ones. Their casual disregard for what other species consider unsurvivable conditions continues to astound and concern us in equal measure. The rescue mission. The emergency beacon's signal pulsed weakly through the storms of Nemesis AX, a planet that perfectly lived up to its ominous name. The Federation Rescue Coordination Center had been monitoring the signal for 3 days, watching helplessly as a luxury cruise liner with 2,000 passengers remained stranded on the planet's hostile surface. Admiral Kovor, a towering insectoid being, clicked his mandibles in frustration as he studied the latest sensor readings. Another rescue attempt failed. The atmospheric storms shredded the shuttle's shields before it could even reach the surface. The planet below was a nightmare of environmental extremes. Acid rain fell from skies charged with destructive energy, while the surface alternated between frozen wastes and superheated plains. The cruise liner had crash-landed in one of the most inhospitable regions, where temperature swings of hundreds of degrees occurred within hours. "How long can their shelter hold?" asked Sub-Commander Relix, her crystalline form dimming with concern. "The ship's emergency systems are failing," Kovor replied. "They have perhaps 2 days before the acid storms breach the hull. We've lost contact with 3 rescue teams already. No known ship can withstand those conditions long enough to complete an evacuation." "Then it's a good thing we're not known ships." The voice came from Captain Sarah Chen, who had just entered the command center. The same human who had first contacted the Federation during the mining operation now stood before them, looking remarkably unconcerned about the impossible situation displayed on the screens. Captain Chin, Kavor acknowledged, his antennae twitching with a mixture of hope and skepticism. Your mining vessel was in the sector. We picked up the distress call, she confirmed, studying the sensor data with intense interest. The Prometheus and 2 other human ships are standing by. We've modified our mining vessels for rescue operations. Modified mining vessels. Relix's crystalline structure vibrated with doubt. Captain, these conditions have destroyed our most advanced rescue ships. Sarah smiled, a gesture that still made many Federation species uncomfortable. With respect, your ships are designed to avoid dangerous conditions. Our ships are designed to work in them. We've been mining asteroids in radiation storms and acid clouds for years. She pulled up a holographic display showing 3 massive ships. They were ugly by Federation standards. Blocky, over-engineered vessels covered in thick armor plating and bristling with industrial equipment. The Prometheus, Helios, and Atlas are all rated for extreme environment operations, Sarah explained. We've converted our cargo holds to accommodate evacuees, and our mining shields are specifically designed to withstand corrosive conditions. But the temperature variations alone, Kavor began, are actually less extreme than some of our deep space mining operations, Sarah interrupted. Look, every minute we spend discussing this is another minute those people are trapped down there. We're going in. We'd appreciate your support, but we don't technically need your permission. The Admiral's compound eyes studied the human captain carefully. He had read reports about human capabilities and their unusual relationship with dangerous environments, but this seemed beyond even their legendary resilience. What's your plan? He finally asked. Sarah's team quickly laid out their strategy. The 3 mining ships would approach from different vectors, using their industrial-grade shields to create a temporary corridor through the storms. Their mining lasers, normally used for cutting through asteroids, would clear a path through the crystallized acid formations that had trapped the cruise liner. We've also got something new, Sarah added, displaying schematics for what looked like massive mechanical suits. We call them Heavy Environmental Response Units, HERU suits. They're based on our deep-core mining equipment but modified for rescue operations. The Federation officers stared at the designs in amazement. The suits were essentially miniature spacecraft, built around a human pilot. They looked impossibly bulky and crude compared to Federation technology, but their specifications were astounding. These can operate in conditions that would destroy our best drones, Relix observed, her crystalline form glowing with surprise. That's the idea, Sarah confirmed. We'll use them to secure the evacuation route and assist passengers who can't make it to the ships on their own. The suits can even carry up to 4 passengers in their emergency compartments. And the human pilots? Kavor asked. Even with such protection, they'll be exposing themselves to extreme risks. Sarah's expression hardened. Admiral, every member of my crew volunteered for this mission the moment we heard the distress call. Humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We consider standing by while others die to be a form of evil. The rescue operation began within the hour. The 3 mining ships descended through Nemesis EX's lethal atmosphere, their massive shields glowing as they deflected lightning strikes and acid storms. The Federation Command Center watched in amazement as the human vessels executed their plan with practiced precision. Prometheus in position, Sarah reported, her voice steady despite the violent turbulence shaking her ship. Beginning shield corridor establishment. Helios, Atlas, move to your positions. The 3 ships created a triangular formation around the crash site, their modified mining shields projecting a protective bubble that forced back the worst of the storms. The HERU suits launched from their base, looking like massive mechanical warriors as they descended to the surface. Ground team reporting, came the voice of Maya Rodriguez, the HERU team leader. Conditions are rough but manageable. Beginning passenger evacuation. What followed was a display of human determination that would become legendary in Federation records. The HERU teams worked tirelessly, in conditions that would have killed most species instantly. They cut through the cruise liner's damaged hull, established secure pathways through the acid-corroded corridors, and began evacuating passengers. "We've got civilians with environmental sensitivity," Maya reported. "Switching to internal life support in the emergency compartments. Jones, Martinez, focus on the elderly and children first." The Federation observers watched in awe as the humans executed their rescue with incredible efficiency. The HFY suits moved through the lethal environment as if it were merely an inconvenience, their pilots coordinating complex maneuvers while carrying terrified passengers to safety. How are they maintaining such precision in these conditions? Relix wondered aloud as they watched the feeds. The suits must be experiencing incredible stress. "It's not the suits," Kavor replied softly. "It's the humans inside them. They're not just enduring these conditions, they're adapting to them in real time." A massive lightning strike suddenly broke through the shield corridor, sending cascading energy waves across the rescue zone. Several Federation officers cried out in alarm, but the humans barely seemed to notice. "Slight weather problem," Sarah reported casually. "Atlas, divert power to Sector 7. Helios, compensate on your end. Ground team, you've got about 3 minutes of reduced shield coverage in your area." "Copy that," Maya responded, adjusting evacuation route. "Teams, switch to emergency protocols. Double time. People." The HERU teams actually increased their pace, their movements becoming more efficient rather than more cautious. They had trained for exactly this kind of situation, treating lethal conditions as just another problem to be solved. Hour after hour, the humans continued their work. They rotated teams when radiation exposure approached dangerous levels, but even then, the resting crews used their time to repair and modify their equipment for better performance in the deteriorating conditions. Final group of passengers secured. Maya finally reported, her voice showing fatigue, but no less determination. "Beginning crew evacuation." "What about the ship's data cores?" someone asked. "They contain irreplaceable research data. Already handled," came the reply. Rodriguez had her team download everything during the first phase. Standard procedure. Save the lives first, then the data, then any valuable equipment we can safely recover. As the last evacuees were secured aboard the mining vessels, the Federation Command Center erupted in celebrations. They had just witnessed the impossible, a successful rescue operation in conditions that their most advanced technology couldn't handle. "Captain Chen," Admiral Kavor addressed Sarah as the ships began their ascent. "The Federation owes you and your crews a debt we can never repay. I must ask, how did you know you could succeed where our best ships failed?" Sarah's response was characteristically human. "We didn't know, Admiral. We just knew we had to try. Humans have a long history of doing impossible things simply because nobody told us they were impossible, or because we refused to believe it when they did. A new understanding." The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Federation hummed with anticipation. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered in the vast crystalline dome, their diverse forms creating a living mosaic of bioluminescence, shifting colors, and varied morphologies. Today marked a historic occasion, the formal admission of humanity into the Federation Council. High Chancellor Vexterra, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate crystalline matrix, addressed the assembly. "We gather today not just to welcome a new species, but to acknowledge a fundamental shift in our understanding of life itself." The central display activated, showing footage from the past year of human interactions with the Federation. Mining operations in lethal radiation fields, the Nova Station crisis, the impossible rescue at Nemesis EX. Each incident demonstrated humanity's unique capabilities. "When we first encountered humans," Vexterra continued, "many questioned whether such beings could truly exist. Their casual defiance of what we considered universal limitations seemed impossible. Yet here we stand, having witnessed them reshape our understanding of what is possible." Dr. Elena Martinez, now serving as Earth's first Federation ambassador, stood calmly at the speaker's podium. Unlike most species present, she required no environmental supports despite the chamber's carefully maintained neutral atmosphere. Her mere presence, breathing corrosive oxygen, standing comfortably in what humans considered low gravity, was itself a demonstration of her species' extraordinary nature. Honored representatives, Elena began, humanity comes before you not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners. We've learned that what we consider normal, others find extraordinary. What we see as everyday challenges, others view as impossible barriers. The display shifted to show human colonies spreading across previously uninhabitable worlds. Where other species saw death worlds, humans saw opportunities. They transformed toxic wastelands into thriving communities, built cities in radiation zones, and established mining operations in environments that would kill most species instantly. But perhaps our greatest contribution to the Federation, Elena continued, isn't our ability to survive in extreme conditions. It's our perspective on what's possible. She gestured to a group of alien scientists seated nearby, the first graduates of Earth's new xenological research program. These beings had volunteered to study alongside humans, learning not just human science, but human determination. Under human guidance, Elena explained, these researchers have achieved what their species previously thought impossible, not through any physical changes, but by learning to question limitations, to seek alternative solutions, to refuse to accept impossible as an answer. One of the graduates, a crystalline being named Zixtal, moved forward to share their experience. Studying with humans taught me that most limits are self-imposed. They showed me that what we call impossible is often merely difficult, and what we call difficult is often simply unexplored. The display showed Zixtal working alongside humans in modified environmental conditions that their species had previously considered lethal. Through careful adaptation and human-inspired protective equipment, they had expanded their species' operational parameters beyond anything previously imagined. Humans have a saying, Zixtal continued, their crystalline form glowing with excitement. They say necessity is the mother of invention. But they've taught us that curiosity and determination are equally powerful parents of progress. The chamber's attention turned to another display showing the latest Federation exploration vessels, ships that combine the elegant technology of the Federation with human-inspired robust engineering. These new ships could venture into regions of space previously considered too dangerous to explore. The influence of human thinking extends beyond technology, High Chancellor Vexterra observed. Their approach to problem-solving has begun to permeate Federation culture. Where we once saw barriers, we now see challenges to overcome. Where we once retreated from danger, we now ask ourselves, how would humans approach this? A holographic map appeared, showing hundreds of newly accessible star systems. Regions once marked as lethal or uninhabitable were now labeled as challenging or requiring special equipment. The galaxy had grown larger simply because humans refused to accept its traditional boundaries. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of humanity, Elena continued, is not that we survive in extreme conditions, but that we help others do the same. We don't just push boundaries, we hold the door open for others to follow. The display showed human engineers working with various species, developing customized protective equipment and environmental systems. Technology that humans had created for mining and exploration was being adapted to allow other species to operate safely in previously inaccessible environments. The Federation has always prided itself on unity through diversity, Vexterra declared. Humans have shown us that diversity includes not just different forms of life, but different approaches to living. They've taught us that adaptation isn't just about evolving to suit your environment. It's also about changing your environment to suit your needs, while helping others do the same. Elena nodded in agreement. Earth has a long history of explorers who ventured into the unknown, of pioneers who settled in hostile territories, of innovators who refused to accept limitations. We bring this heritage to the Federation not as a superior way of being, but as one more tool in our shared arsenal of survival. The chamber erupted in a cascade of lights, colors, and harmonious sounds, the varied species' expressions of approval and acceptance. The formal vote that followed was unanimous. Humanity would join the Federation Council, bringing their unique perspective and capabilities to the galaxy's governing body. As the ceremony concluded, Alina found herself surrounded by representatives eager to establish cooperative ventures with Earth. The humans' matter-of-fact approach to impossible challenges had created not fear, but hope. Hope that with human assistance, their own species might transcend their traditional limitations. Ambassador Martinez, a gaseous being, approached her, their form swirling with excitement. "My species has always been confined to low-pressure environments. But your engineers believe they can help us develop containment systems that would let us explore high-pressure worlds." "Of course," Alina smiled. "Humans have been dealing with pressure differentials since we first ventured underwater. We'd be happy to share our experience." In the years that followed, humanity's influence spread throughout the Federation like a catalyst for change. Their presence didn't just add another species to the galactic community. It fundamentally altered how that community viewed the possible and the impossible. The Federation's official archives would later mark this period as the beginning of a new age of exploration and innovation. But perhaps the most telling change was in the Federation's response to challenges. Where they once said, "It's impossible," they now asked, "What would humans do?" And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, human mining ships continued to venture into the unknown, their crews casually defying death as they pushed the boundaries of possibility ever further. Not because they were fearless or invincible, but because they had never learned to accept that anything was truly impossible.